Hello, welcome to this program. Dear students, today our topic is water pollution. The main objectives of today's lecture are to give a brief idea about water and its properties, to give a general and thorough idea of pollution, explaining the various types of water pollution, to give a precise account on different sources of water pollution, elucidating various control measures of water pollution. To begin with, let me first of all discuss water and its important properties. Water is an important resource for the people and the environment. Water covers about 70% of the surface of the earth, but only 0.00192% of the water is available for human consumption. Water is the basis of life. It makes up to 60 to 95% of the total weight of any functioning living cell. Consider a simple molecule of water which consists of two hydrogen to oxygen chemical bonds form an 105-degree angle with each other, resulting in a molecule that has a slightly positive charge at one end and a slightly negative charge at the other. The dipolar character means water molecules are attracted to each other, which helps to explain why water boils at such a high temperature and why it takes an unusually large amount of energy to cause it to vaporize. It also helps to explain water high surface tension, which allows it to support relatively heavy objects such as insects that skate along its surface. Now let's discuss water pollution. World Health Organization has defined water pollution as inclusion of any foreign material either from the natural or other sources into the water body, thereby changing the natural qualities of water and making it unusable for its intended purpose. Dear students, you might have studied the different types of environmental pollutions. Among them, water pollution is one of the worst types of pollution at global level. Let's first discuss the sources of water pollution. Sources of water pollution, particularly groundwater pollution, are grouped under two categories based on the origin of pollutant. First, point source pollution. Water pollution caused by point sources refers to the contaminants that enter the water body from a single identifiable sources like pipe or ditch. Point source pollutants can be discharged from sewage treatment plant, factories or a city storm drain. Non-point source pollution. Pollution caused by non-point sources refers to the contamination that does not originate from a single source. Non-point source pollution is the cumulative effect of small contaminants gathered in large area. Leaching of nitrogen compounds from agricultural land, stormwater runoff over agricultural land or a forest are examples of non-point source pollution. Now let's have a look at types of water pollution. There are many types of water pollution depending on the source the pollutants originate from. First, surface water pollution. Surface water includes rivers, lakes, oceans, streams, lagoons. Surface runoff substances that are hazards dissolve and mix with water, polluting the surface water. These runoff substances can be from any source like factories, domestic sewage, agricultural land, etc. Domestic sewage. Domestic sewage is the wastewater from households. It also includes sanitary sewage and it contains a variety of dissolved and suspended solids. Domestic sewage contains disease-causing microbes and chemicals mainly from washing powders affecting the health of all life forms in water. Agricultural runoff. The practices followed in agriculture affect the groundwater quality. Intensive cultivation causes fertilizers and pesticides to seep into the groundwater. This process is known as leaching. Irrigation runoff from agricultural fields causes a high nitrate content in groundwater. Now moving on to the industrial effluents. Many industries are located near rivers or freshwater streams. These are responsible for discharging their untreated effluents like highly toxic heavy metals such as chromium, arsenic, lead, mercury, etc. along with other hazardous organic and inorganic wastes like acids, alkalis, cyanides, chlorides, etc. into the rivers and makes water unsafe for drinking purposes. Groundwater pollution. Chemicals from fertilizers and pesticides applied to the soil are washed off and seep into the ground, contaminating the composition of the groundwater, causing pollution. Now let's have a look at thermal water pollution. Thermal water pollution is the rise in water temperatures. This change in the temperature of water can be caused due to industries. Some industries use water as cooling agent. The heated water is let off directly into the natural environment at a higher temperature. Aquatic organisms like fish are vulnerable to slight changes in the temperature. Heated water decreases oxygen in the water, killing fish and other aquatic organisms. Now moving on to the natural pollution. Sometimes pollution is caused by microorganisms like bacteria and protozoa. This natural pollution can be lethal for fishes and other water life. Consumption of this water can lead to the serious illness to humans. Now there is one more important fact, that's oil spillage. Oil tankers and offshore petroleum refineries cause oil leakage, polluting water. Oil spills can cause death of many aquatic organisms and also stick to the bodies and feathers of seabirds and thus rendering them unable to fly. Let's have a discussion over the causes of water pollution. The contaminants that lead to water pollution include a wide variety of substances like chemicals, pathogens, temperature changes, and discoloration, etc. Therefore, water pollution affects all living species and also populations and complete functioning of the ecosystem that lives in the waters. Industrial activity causes huge water pollution. Wastes from factories are let off into fresh water to carry water from plants into rivers. This contaminates water with pollutants like lead, mercury, asbestos, and petrochemicals. Sewage let off from domestic households, factories, commercial buildings are untreated in water treatment plants yet are disposed into the sea. Sewage containing flush chemicals and pharmaceuticals cause greater problems. Solid waste dumping and littering of cardboards, plastics, glass, aluminium, tins, etc. in water bodies. Oil spills from tankers and ship travel causes oil pollution. Oil does not dissolve in water and forms a thick layer on the water surface. Burning of fossil fuels and emissions from industries and motor vehicles causes formation of acidic particles in the atmosphere. These particles fuse with the water vapor, resulting in acid rain. Acid rain harms aquatic life. Other causes of water pollution are detergents, byproducts of disinfection, food processing waste, insecticides, petrochemicals, debris from logging operations, volatile organic compounds, personal hygiene and cosmetic products, drug pollution, chemical waste, fertilizers, heavy metals, and sedimentation. Here it becomes due for you to have a brief idea about effects of water pollution. Water pollution extensively affects health in humans and aquatic ecosystems. Sewage, fertilizer, and agricultural runoff have nutrients, organic substances which lead to the increase of algal bloom, causing oxygen depletion. The lower oxygen levels affect the natural ecological balance of rivers and lake ecosystem. The outbreak of several waterborne diseases is associated with contamination of water with pathogens. For example, bacterial contamination causes typhoid, paratyphoid fever, and cholera. Viral contamination causes infectious hepatitis and poliomyelitis. Protozoa contamination causes amoebic dysentery. Consumption and swimming in contaminated water causes skin diseases, cancer, reproductive problems, and stomach ailments in humans. Industrial effluents and agricultural pesticides accumulate in aquatic environments, causing harm to aquatic animals and lead to the biomagnifications. Heavy metals like mercury and lead are poisonous to small children and women. These chemicals interfere in the development of nervous system in the fetuses and young children. Rising water temperatures destroy aquatic ecosystem. Coral reefs are bleached due to the warmer temperatures. Warmer waters force indigenous water species to seek cooler water, causing ecological shift of the affected area. Littering by humans like plastic bags clog and suffocate aquatic animals. Now let's move on to the bioindicators. Bioindicators are a species that can be used to monitor the health of an environment or ecosystem. There are many biological species or group of species whose function, population, or status can reveal the qualitative status of the environment. One example of a group of bioindicators is the copepods and the other small water crustaceans that are present in many water bodies. Such organisms can be monitored for changes like biochemical, physiological, or behavioral that may indicate a problem within their ecosystem. Bioindicators can tell us about the cumulative effects of different pollutants in the ecosystem and about how long a problem may have been present, which physical and chemical testing cannot. Now let's discuss criteria for selecting these bioindicators. Indicators should have causal relationship to the ecological significant endpoint. Indicators should have specific dose responsiveness to specific stress or should be sensitive and specific. Indicators should have wide temporal and spatial distribution. Indicators should be available all the year and should have low variability to noise in the system. Indicators should have results which are transparent and reproducible. Indicators should have sometimes even surrogate the role of other responses. Indicators should be easy to collect and should be cost effective. Now there are types of these bioindicators. Bioindicators can be of mainly two types. First, accumulation bioindicator. These bioindicators store pollutants without any evident change in their metabolisms. Second, response bioindicators. These react with the cell chains or visible symptoms of damage when taking up even small quantity of these harmful substances. Now let's discuss microorganisms as these bioindicators. Microorganisms are a diverse group of organisms found in large quantities and are easier to detect and sample. The presence of some microorganisms is well correlated with a particular type of pollution and it serves as standard indicator of pollution. Some bacteria produce stress proteins in response to contaminant like cadmium and benzene. These stress proteins can be used as an early warning system to detect changes in levels of pollution. The main source of organic burden of the sewage is human body waste or feces, and microorganisms are themselves a main part of human feces. If a person has gastrointestinal illness or is a carrier of gastrointestinal pathogens such as Salmonella typhi, the pathogen is excreted along with the rest of the microbial population. Let's have a look at plants as bioindicators. Aquatic plants provide useful information on the status of aquatic environment as they do not migrate from one place to another and they quickly attain equilibrium within their ambient environment. Some examples of lower group of plants as pollution indicators are blue-green alga and Dunelia show heavy metal pollution by accumulation and are good water pollution indicators. Salvina natans, Sagittaria sagittarifolia, Potamegeton lucens, Polygonum amphibibium, Lemna species, Elena plantigo aquatic and ranunculus species are indicators of eutrophication. Myrophyllum verticllatum, Potamegeton pactinatus and Potamegeton crispus are indicators of severe pollution. Potamegeton pactinatus also accumulates lead in its body. Thermal outfalls replace common macrophytes, that's Myrophyllum verticllatum, Chara, Potamegeton by more resistant species Elodea canadensis. Floating Echinoria crispis for mercury, non-rooted submerged Ceratophyllum demiscum and rooted submerged Potamegeton crispis for assessing heavy metals like cadmium, copper, iron, lead, zinc and manganese in rivers. Animals as bioindicators. An increase or decrease in an animal population may indicate damage to the ecosystem. For example, if depletion of important food sources occurs, animal species dependent upon these food sources will also be reduced in number, that is, population decline. Overpopulation can result due to the growth of opportunistic species. In addition to monitoring the number of certain species, other mechanisms of animal indication include monitoring the concentration of toxins in their tissues or monitoring the rate at which deformities arise in animal populations. Some examples are zooplanktons like Alona guttata, Musclops edex, cyclips or zone-dependent pollution indicators. Coral bioindicator, temporal variation in range of indicators include symbiote density, concentration of chlorophyll, skeletal density, colony brightness of Poecilophora, and density of macrobioiriders and colony brightness of mesoporite species. Long-term turbidity greater than 3 nephelometric turbidity units leads to sublethal stress, and greater than 5 nephelometric turbidity units implies severe stress. Leads are used as a sensor bioindicator of river contamination of polychlorinated biphenyls. Samples can be collected to measure PCB levels. oysters such as Crassiteria gigas and crabs such as Geotica depressa can show trace metal indications. Other crabs like Holioceus codiformis, a semaphore crab, can indicate the presence of lead in Australian estuaries. Brine ship Artemia salina is used to estimate pollutant by its immobilization after 24 hours of incubation. Shrimps juvenile, Paleomonates setiferus, Crognans septim spinosa and Paleomonates vulgaris have shown cadmium sensitivity. Now let's discuss algae as bioindicators. Algae of many kinds are really good indicators of water quality, and many lakes are characterized based on their dominant phytoplankton groups. Many desmids are known to be present in oligotrophic waters, whilst a few species frequently occur in eutrophic water bodies. Similarly, many blue-green algae occur in nutrient-poor waters, while some grow well in organically polluted waters. The ecosystem approach to water quality assessment also includes diatom species and associations used as indicators of water pollution. A list of more than 850 algal taxa was published based on the reports of considerable number of authors. According to this list, many algal genera have species that grow well in water containing high concentration of organic wastes. Green algae, Chlamydomonas, Euglena, diatoms, Avicula, Synedra and blue-green algae, Oscillatoria and Formidiem are emphasized to tolerate organic pollution. At species level, Euglena viridis, Nischia palea, Oscillatoria limosa, Oscillatoria tenuis, Oscillatora perspus and Formidium anicatum are reported to be present than any other species in organically polluted waters. As you know, the water is the lifeline of all living organisms, and without water, life is impossible. Therefore, water conservation is necessary. Now let's discuss some do's and don'ts involved in water conservation. Do not let the water run while brushing your teeth or washing your face. You can save up to 5 gallons. Do not leave the water running if you wash dishes by hand. Rinse all your dishes at once by using a dish rack placed in the sink. Only run your dishwasher and washing machine when they are full. Do not open fire hydrants on the hot summer days because water needed to fight a fire will not be available in an emergency. Also, opening of the hydrants is illegal. Do not throw in the trash, pour down the drain or dump on the ground paint, antifreeze, motor oil and other household hazardous wastes because they can migrate to your water source. Dispose of tissues, dead insects and other waste in a trash can rather than a toilet. Plant native plants instead of traditional lawn grass to avoid the use of herbicides, pesticides, fertilizers. Do not dump your motor oil on the ground or into the sewers. Throwing motor oil in the trash is illegal. Recycling centers and many service stations accept used motor oil for recycling. Now let's discuss some do's and don'ts on how to control water pollution. Use a detergent that has low phosphate levels because high phosphate levels cause added pollution and are hazards to the animals and plants in the water. Dispose of other forms of waste like tissue papers and odd trash bits by putting them in trash bins rather than flushing them down the drain. Wash your car far away from any stormwater drains. Do not throw trash, chemically or solvents into the sewer drains. Avoid using pesticides and fertilizers that can run off into the water systems. Use non-toxic cleaning materials. Clean up oil and other liquid spills with kitty litter and sweep them up. Don't wash paintbrushes in the sink. Now let's move on to the legislative measures for preventing water pollution. The enactment of Prevention and Control of Water Pollution Act in 1974 has helped in the prevention of water pollution. The enactment of standards which have been prescribed for water pollution under Environment Protection Act 1986. With advancement of science and technology, a number of methods are available to treat and cure water. Let's have a brief introduction of wastewater treatment. Wastewater generated by household activity, industries or garbage landfills is called sewage, which is one of the major causes of waterborne diseases, and therefore the treatment of sewage is one of the important tasks. The treatment of this wastewater is carried out in 3 stages: primary treatment, secondary treatment and tertiary treatment. Let's have a brief look at them now. Primary treatment is carried out by sedimentation, coagulation and filtration. This is known as primary treatment. The following steps are performed to do primary treatment of water. First, sedimentation. This step is carried out in large tanks specially built for this purpose in sewage treatment plant. The polluted water is allowed to settle so that slit, clay and other metals settle to the bottom and water is slowly allowed to move out. Fine particles do not settle and are thus required to be removed in the next step, coagulation. Fine particles and colloidal suspension are combined into large particles by a process called coagulation. This step is carried out by the addition of special chemicals called coagulants or flocculants such as potash alum. The large particles either settle to the bottom or are removed in the next step, filtration. Suspended particles, flocculants, bacteria and other organisms are filtered by passing the water through a bed of sand or finely divided coal or through some fibrous materials. Now let's move on to the secondary or biological treatment. The water after primary treatment is not fit for drinking purposes and has to undergo further treatment. This is done through secondary or biological treatment. It involves the use of microorganisms. The microbes include bacteria and protozoa consume organic pollutants as food. They metabolize the biodegradable organics, converting them into carbon dioxide, water and energy for their growth and reproduction. The most common biological treatment systems are trickling filters and activated sludge process. Let's first discuss trickling filter. It's a type of fixed growth system in which microbes remain fixed or attached to a surface to provide contact with organics. Activated sludge. It is characterized by suspended growth system because the microbes are thoroughly mixed and suspended in the wastewater. These aerobic microorganisms grow and multiply, forming an active suspension of biological solids called as activated sludge. Now moving on to the tertiary treatment. The tertiary treatment is actually disinfecting water. Chlorine is the most commonly used disinfectant used for killing bacteria. However, chlorine also reacts with traces of organic matter present in water and forms undesirable chlorinated hydrocarbons which are toxic and potentially carcinogenic. It is therefore desirable to reduce the organic matter in water before passing chlorine gas. Other methods of disinfection such as ultraviolet radiation, ozone gas treatment or reverse osmosis are preferred over chlorine treatment, but these methods are more expensive. Well, that's all for today. I hope you have really understood. Thank you.